Hey guys, it's Matt again from Hedge, here to bring you another educational crypto video. And today's subject is just going to be like a general news and market update of just things that are happening in general. And I want you guys to like this video so that way we know that this is the kind of content you guys want to see. So that way we could provide you, the viewer, a better experience. Before I really get into it, I just got to say one thing. This is not financial advice. We do not accept liabilities for loss that you might incur, and everything here is strictly here for educational, news, and research purposes. First things first that I wanted to mention was this is pretty big. Coinbase is launching their own marketplace for NFTs. So I'm not a big fan of Coinbase. I don't really like them. I personally think that they're like kind of sellouts. I'm just not big on their platform because every time you want to sell or buy, like let's say you want to sell at the top. For some reason, Coinbase will never let you do that. Coinbase has this thing where it's the second you try to sell, when let's say the market goes to the ceiling and you're breaking all-time highs, for some reason the app is always down. And then when the market hits the floor and you want to buy because this is a good time to buy, for example, they never allow you to buy. They always say, oh, the app's having issues. You know what I mean? So I don't like that in an app. I don't like it that when, things are happening, I'm not able to use it. So for me, that's why I don't like Coinbase at all. But they do have a lot of volume and they do have a lot of market cap for people that don't care about those kinds of things. So for me as a crypto head, that's why I don't like it. But the fact is Coinbase is following suit to places like crypto.com and other platforms that are adding NFT marketplaces. And you're likely to see them get involved with any type of NFT platform or project that is blue chip. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them get into Axes and a few other main projects. And for the most part, this is relatively big news for the NFT marketplace simply because NFTs are something that are still considered in a bubble, and they probably are in a bubble. I'll be straight with you. It's very likely any project that doesn't have a good community or isn't like considered OG status like apes or punks or anything like that, chances are they're going to die if they don't have an actual community and project that's doing something other than just being a picture. So I think Coinbase is the type of company that would understand something like that, and they would definitely get involved with either OG things or, up-and-coming projects that could blow up. So that's my 2 cents on Coinbase there. Another thing too that I wanted to mention too was the SEC officially announced this before investing in a fund that holds Bitcoin futures contracts, make sure you carefully weigh the potential risks and benefits. And this is in regards to the fact that Gensler, who's trying to regulate a Bitcoin ETF for the States to be based off of futures contracts of Bitcoin. I could tell you 1,000 ways how that's going to go wrong, simply because if it takes 1% to move Bitcoin, let's say, right, 1% to move Bitcoin, 1% to move Bitcoin, $100 million to move Bitcoin 1%. That means that at any moment a whale could dump the market, and they have, and you've seen large liquidations from exchanges trading futures. And to back an ETF by the futures, two things are going to happen. The first one being is that A, you're backing the entire thing by the most speculative part of a speculative asset. So you're basing this whole ETF on speculation, not just speculation, but the most intense part of gambling on this speculation. That's what they're backing the ETF by. And then this scares me for another reason, by the way. Because you have that, which is already like a flaming cesspool of garbage. But then you have this. If they start backing ETFs with these futures, then it becomes profitable for whales to come and disrupt futures markets to manipulate them and liquidate people to take their money to give to shareholders. Anyone who's playing Bitcoin futures, when this passes, I recommend, you could call it, I wouldn't call this financial advice or not, but I would suggest getting out, for my personal opinion, because the second that they start taking the gambling aspect and they start taking your money in futures contracts by manipulating, let's say, the actual contract to pay shareholders of an ETF, there's something wrong there. That's horrible. That whole thing is messed up, and that shouldn't be happening. And that whole thing, while that's happening, guess what? Chances are the SEC will be buying Bitcoin and getting direct exposure as opposed to exposure to the speculation. So the way I see this whole thing playing out, and I'm calling it, and you guys could disagree or agree, I don't really care. But the way I see it is this. They're going to set up the ETF. People are going to buy into the ETF. The ETF is going to use those funds to liquidate people in futures markets to take tether. That tether will be taken in by the SEC to give dividends to the people who are buying the ETF, and then they will use that USDT, which is free because they're taking people's USD, and then they're going to buy Bitcoin with it so that they could take the Bitcoin for themselves, and everyone else will be left with the speculation and the trash. And then when they pop that ETF, they're going to be the ones holding the actual Bitcoin. So everyone's going to get fucked. And for me, the way I see it is Gensler, I think that he's a mad genius, madman. Fucking, what do they call those? The evil geniuses. Because I think he understands what he's about to do. Because Bitcoin is a 24-hour market, meaning that the only futures contracts you could really use for that would be a perpetual contract. And if they use a perpetual contract, then this whole system is fucked, and no one should put their money into ETFs, the Bitcoin ETF of the US, or futures markets of Bitcoin, because then you will lose all your money. And that's very serious. And I'm not saying this just as an opinion. I'm saying that if they get in the way I'm expecting it, the way I just laid it out, if you go into a futures market at any leverage other than 2x or 3x, you're losing all your money. They will beat you. You cannot win against bots and the SEC, because they already have sophisticated bots on Wall Street, and if they start throwing those into the Bitcoin futures market, it's done. I don't recommend anyone play any futures anymore, because they will take your money. I get really upset when I think about that. Sorry. I'm going to move on to the next subject, because I'm going to start losing hair if I talk about this. I'm going to need a hairline treatment. Now, the next thing that I'm going to be talking about is Putin says he accepts crypto's role in making payments. Now, this is something that I mentioned a long time ago on the channel, how Russia and China were currently, or at the time, settling payments in Bitcoin for global trade. Now, this is looking more and more like Putin's on board to some degree, but China now, they closed the door to Bitcoin because their coal mining and red or blood Bitcoin is no longer acceptable for them. So now Russia, they definitely still take their Bitcoin, and the fact that Putin says he's okay with it means that he understands, or rather that he's tolerant of it. Means that he understands, okay, this isn't a threat to Russia. He probably sees it as more of a threat to the US and China. So for him, he's like, Bitcoin's cool with me. Because Putin, for the most part, is a strategic individual. You can see it when he, interacts with people on a global level. He's very much for Russian interest. So he would not allow Bitcoin if it wasn't in Russian interest to some degree, even a little bit. So that's probably why he's tolerant. China bans it because they got theirs banned, and the US, they're clearly just confused and don't know where they're at anymore. So for him, he's like, all right, let's let it ride, And that's more or less what his opinion is for it, right? And it's definitely a weird time to be existing when you're seeing all this play out, whatever I just said, in front of you, and it just makes me realize that the metaverse is going to be much bigger than we expect, because people are starting to get soft around it. They're like, we could kind of tolerate, we could kind of make it happen. We haven't crushed it, and even when we tried, it won't go away. So now they're just kind of getting used to it being there. And eventually it starts off like they hate you, and then eventually they're like, oh, okay. I hated them, they won't go away, so I guess we're just going to have to accept it. And then eventually when they accept it, the next step is they start to like it. So that's my opinion of the news update that we had of all these things that basically passed. I want you guys to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content of this video and hearing me rant a little bit. And take care.